Portion of this video is sponsored by simplisafe. Visit simplisafe.com/John Rettinger to learn more.
Alrighty folks, welcome back to the Computer Shopping Hour. Got a very special one this hour. This is a genuine iPhone 6 separator. Made from 100% recycled material. It's got all the cutouts you need. Even includes this nice Apple Store bag. This is a great collector's item that can be yours for $229.95. If you're interested, give us a call.
So the price of Apple products has gotten crazy, but we're not there yet. So there's no way around it. Apple products are expensive. You might think they're worth it, you might think they're not, but there's most definitely kind of an Apple tax that goes along with their product line. You are paying a premium for that logo and the services on the back of your devices. And you could also make the argument that Apple, one of the world's richest companies, is getting crazy cheap. We made a whole video talking about Apple supposedly removing the power brick from iPhone 12 line of devices, but it kind of brought up the question, what's the flip side of that argument? So what if I told you that Apple is not that expensive? We're not always that expensive. And what if you could get an iPhone, an iPad, AirPods, and an Apple Watch, all for the same price of a brand new iPhone 11 Pro? All right, so here's the scenario. What if you took that $1,000 price point that you would have spent to buy a new iPhone 11 Pro or presumably an iPhone 12 Pro, and you bought a brand new iPhone SE straight from apple.com, and you used the rest to get fully Appled out? So our goal was to get pretty much the full breadth of the mobile Apple ecosystem for that same price. So obviously that's the iPhone SE we just talked about. It's an iPad, an Apple Watch, and AirPods. So I got a lot of time to kill, so I went online and did a lot of shopping for what I could buy for that same $1,000 price point. All right, so the heart of all this is the iPhone SE. And again, for that price, you are getting an amazing feature set. You don't have the slim bezels, you don't have the OLED screen or even Face ID, but most of the good stuff is still in there. And what's on your wrist is going to be a brand new 38mm Apple Watch Series 3. And it's still gonna, measure your rings, give you all that fitness tracking, and it's also where you can start to get that first glimpse of the Apple ecosystem. The handoff from phone calls and sort of the beauty of your iDevices talking to each other. Let's get you a tablet with actually the current entry-level 7th gen iPad. So all the iPad OS features are obviously here. It now has a smart connector. You can easily hook up one of Apple's own keyboards. You can use the Apple Pencil now with it. And with iPad OS 14 coming, being able to scribble in anything you want, there's a lot of use cases for why you might want those accessories. But for this case, you are getting a really awesome tablet that can go with you wherever you want and can in some cases be your whole PC. And last but certainly not least, and perhaps the thing you might use the most, regular AirPods. So this is not the wireless charging case, it's not AirPods Pro, it's the regular wired charging AirPods, but these things are still being sold by Apple. They still work extremely well. They pair like magic to your phone calls, music, whether you're working out or walking, ton of Zoom meetings. These are a must-have accessory. They're always in my bag. And for the same price, and sort of keeping things under that $1,000 umbrella, I think getting AirPods as part of that is absolutely amazing value to have. All right, so now that we've got all of these in our cart from apple.com, you can see we are over sort of our pre-tax price of trying to get to $1,000. But fret not, I've got a solution. For the iPhone SE, it's the entry-level $400 device. There are a lot of carrier deals to be had, but for this one, I wanted to buy it directly unlocked from Apple. So AirPods, at least as of this filming, can be bought from Amazon for $30 off. And we'll link to things down below as prices start to change. The Apple Watch Series 3, same thing, as of this filming, has a discount on Amazon. And perhaps the trickiest one is the 7th gen iPad. Typically it's $330 from Apple. This deal is in and out on Amazon, but it does drop that price $30 to $300. So again, we'll put the most updated links down below, but if you time it right, you can get a pretty nice discount on a brand new Apple product. So grand totaling all of these up with them sweet Amazon discounts, we come in at less than the $1,000 target that we had. So for the price of the cheapest iPhone 11 Pro, we've got a brand new phone, a brand new watch, a brand new tablet, and a brand new pair of headphones. That's a killer deal. All right, so we got all of our devices set up, unboxed, talking to each other, working in that Apple ecosystem. And it begs the question, if all these devices work so well on the inexpensive side of Apple's product line, why do they sell devices that are so expensive, and how could they be worth it? So if you have these devices on the low end and the high end, what are you missing out on? So like the iPhone SE versus the iPhone 11 Pro, the 7th gen iPad versus the iPad Pro, like what are you getting on both ends of that spectrum? All right, so I actually did a whole video on the SE versus the 11 Pro, so you can watch that if you want to get the full rundown, but it boils down to they both have the same really amazing, powerful A13 processor. They have the same smart HDR, and they've got wireless charging as well. Obviously, there are like differences here as well, especially when it comes to screen. So the Pro obviously has OLED, whereas the SE's got LCD. The 11 Pro's got a much bigger battery. The 11 Pro's got more cameras, and the Pro also has Face ID, plus a newer, more modern design. So like the 11 Pro is obviously a newer phone that generally has more stuff, but the end use, sort of how you use a phone, the experience of using iOS on the SE versus 11 Pro is quite frankly not that different. And that same trend continues with the iPad. I mean, the iPad Pros, it's got the newer, sleek industrial design, slim bezels, and Face ID. But the iPad, like the 7th gen one, like the SE, is a design that's kind of older. We've seen for many years. It's got bigger bezels, Touch ID, and certainly lacks the looks of a 2020 flagship. The iPad Pro obviously has better cameras plus LiDAR if you care about that. It also has a higher refresh rate, LED liquid retina display. The experience, despite the processor difference, is still relatively similar if you're web browsing, watching video, even doing photo editing, or even some video editing on it. It's not that different, and the accessories aren't that different either. So for most of the iPad things that you would want to do, 7th gen iPad does them still really well. And when it comes to the Apple Watch, the Series 3 versus the Series 5 are actually more similar than you might think. They're both running the same watch OS. They both have almost identical health features, but obviously there are some differences since you've got things like the size is different, first of all. You've got an always-on display, a compass, if that's your jam, and then of course, faster processor. I mean, and then to round this out, there's 1st gen AirPods versus the current flagship AirPods Pro. So obviously noise canceling is a big deal with the AirPods Pro. They're a different design, they fit in your ear a bit differently, but inherently they do the same thing. They pair the same way. They let you take phone calls, listen to music, whatever you are doing. They've got great microphones if you want to use it for doing video chatting. The differences aside from noise canceling and aesthetic between the AirPods Pro and the AirPods is really not that big. I don't know if you guys have seen some of our recent social videos, but we moved into a new studio that clearly we have not done any second decoration on, but moving into a new space, all of our equipment, securing all of that stuff is immensely important. simplisafe had everything that I needed, and I can customize it right for this space. From door sensors to motion sensors to cameras, anything you can name, simplisafe had an option. And I was able to order exactly the pieces and components that I wanted for this studio. I didn't have to pay for things that I didn't need. I mean, the setup process for all of this is crazy easy. So you've got your keypad with you, which is actually portable. You can take it off and carry it with you. Let's say you want to set up a motion sensor. There's a button on it, you push the button, and it asks if you want to pair it, you set a name for it, and that is it. It is ready to go. So if you're interested in securing your home and being able to do it yourself and building out a system that's going to suit your needs, we'll put a link down below, but check out simplisafe.com/John Rettinger.
And we can't do it. We just can't ship junk.
So it seems like whenever the topic of Apple and price comes up, the Steve Jobs quote of, "We don't ship junk," tends to resurface on both sides of it. The folks that are arguing that he's correct, Apple doesn't ship junk, and the folks that are saying, yeah, you do, look at this overpriced piece of electronic garbage. But like every quote, especially now during an election year, it's important to look at the whole context of the conversation and not just that one tiny little clip to really understand what was being said, and what was being said still rings true with Apple today.
Our goal is to make the best personal computers in the world and to make products we are proud to sell and would recommend to our family and friends. And we want to do that at the lowest prices we can. But I have to tell you, there's some stuff in our industry that we wouldn't be proud to ship, that we wouldn't be proud to recommend to our family and friends.
Now, you can argue till you're blue in the face on the value proposition of Apple's products. We tried to make a point here that there still is value to be had, but it boils down to they're generally more expensive than their other OS counterparts. But out of all these devices that we named on either side, the cheap or the expensive, they're all built to last, to get you through more than 1 year, more than 2 years, hopefully into that year 3 or 4 if you choose to keep it. And there's something to be said for a product that you buy at any price point that you know is not going to be sort of obsolesced out after just a few months. And I think the argument also, especially with the iPhone SE, is that it's not just value, it's also power. That A13 processor is really fast, really good, and so far ahead of the competition that you can still do those same performance tasks you can on the $1,000 flagships on the $400 iPhone SE. And I think there's something to be said about Apple continuing to support, older devices. iOS 14 is going to support devices that came out 5 years ago in 2015. And I think that's pretty awesome. But a lot of folks are still using an iPhone 6S, for example, as their daily phone. And I don't think the same can be said with the same regularity as the Android counterparts, as like a Galaxy S6 or a Note 5. So Apple can be cheap. Apple can be selfish. They can make questionable business decisions, but it's becoming harder to argue that they're not trying to compete at almost every price point. And the iPhone SE, I think, is a shot across the bow to the Android competitors. So for Apple offering an iPhone SE at $400 with their flagship processor, I thought it'd be interesting and important, at the very least, give credit where credit is due.